The very first panelist is Mavis Conrad to my left. And Mavis, I'm not going to read verbatim what you have in your folders because you do have the extensive bios. But in chit-chatting with Mavis this morning, what I came to realize is that besides being an in-depth HR expert, she is the embodiment of what we're going to be talking about. If you look at her short bio, it is really the roadmap of what competencies are all about and how transferability of skills can help us navigate various careers. So, poster person for the morning. Thank you, Mavis, for being here with us.
Thank you. And it's nice to see everybody out today. So I'm going to have to start with, I'm not an expert when it comes to competencies, but like Nicole said, I am literally a walking competency. I started with the provincial government Ministry for Children and Families when I was in my early 20s. Back then, there was no such thing as behavioral interviews. It was literally skills. It was a skills-based interview that I had to do. And back then, for example, we had to do 60 words a minute was a skill. I had to do an in-basket exercise. I had to put together a personnel file following some guidelines. Okay? Once I passed that, then you kind of look at the regular interview asking the questions, but there were no behavioral questions. So I moved around with the Ministry for Children and Families. I did a couple of transfers through to other ministries and brought those skills there to the other ministries, which was really, really interesting. But boy, have things changed. Things have changed a lot from when I started. So my presentation is going to be very rudimentary compared to these gentlemen. Okay, these guys are the experts. So when I was learning a little bit about the competencies, there's so much information out there. Where do you start? Where do you begin? Do I have to? Okay, so this is kind of the agenda that I'm going to follow. And please feel free, if you have any ideas, if I'm talking about something that you have an example, can you please just say, yeah, I have an example of that. If you have something, a comment, feel free. I'm open to discussion, and I like that. I like to have a little interactive. Okay, so understanding competencies. We're going to look at why competencies and how are they used, and how can competencies help my organization, and a competency framework. And these gentlemen are going to break that down a little bit more. This is just kind of an overview for those of you that are not familiar with competencies. Okay, so for me, and I know I've probably talked to some of you on the phone, I may not have met you in person, but if you can just give me your name, your company, your organization, and what are you wanting to learn today, and then give me an idea of what your knowledge of competencies are. If you're familiar with it, if your organization already has a framework, if you use competencies in job descriptions. Okay, so if we can start, Allison.
Alison Liebel, I'm the Software Development Manager for AutoStar Compesystems.
Oh, yes, we've talked.
Yeah.
Yes.
I guess because I'm a techie, a geek, and all my guys are geeks, we forget that there's the other sides to it, the other competencies.
Yeah, and we've talked about that.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
So, technical, we're great, but
Yeah.
it's the other side as well.
Yeah,
so I'm
absolutely.
looking to get more of a refresher and an insight to that.
Okay, perfect, great, thanks.
Sherifa, Career and Employment Consultant at Tabata Works.
Okay.
Just to, as she rightly said, to refresh my memory about competency.
Yep.
Rhonda McKenna with the YMCA. We've
Okay.
had a couple conversations.
Yes. Yeah.
So HR is one of my roles, and it's just basically learning about competencies and starting to adapt them more into our roles.
Okay. Good.
My name is Petra. I'm the CEO of the Shortgrass Library System. And we do not have a formal framework surrounding competencies at our organization right now, and I would like to learn more about it.
Okay, perfect.
My name is Janine and I'm from Cypress County, and looking at how to incorporate competencies into job descriptions and also discussions around makeup of project teams and really who we should be gathering,
Okay.
into our project teams.
I'm Pamela Wagner with Being Human Services, and our organization deals with people all the time who are trying to fit themselves into the new reality of the labor market. So how do we help them identify what they have and what they bring forward?
I'm Erin with RBC, and I'm here for a refresher and just to learn a few more things.
Okay, perfect.
I'm Kelly from the Medicine Hat Women's Shelter Society. We actually use a list of competencies. I just want to see if we're on the right track and possibly learn a few more things.
Good, excellent.
Good morning, Daryl Bartman with Quickway Electrical. I look after the HR and the safety side of things for those guys. So fairly new at the job.
Yeah.
Background is safety, but doing lots of hiring and stuff. So just trying to learn as much as I can.
Okay, good. Thanks very much. So we have a variety of people that some are familiar with competency, some are just starting out, some are trying to sort it out. So hopefully this will give you a bit of an idea of where to start, and these gentlemen can go from there as far as the other. Okay, so where did competencies start? They actually started in the 50s. David McClellan in 1973 wrote a paper, Testing for Competency Rather Than Intelligence. Okay? So it was basically, back then they were doing aptitude tests, personality tests, but they found that it was defined in the terms of knowledge, skills, and attitudes, and to focus more on the specific self-image, values, traits, and motivations that motivated people. Okay? He discovered that the competency for one job might not predict outstanding performance in a different role. Okay, IQ tests, psychological testing to predict performance did not, in fact, predict job performance. They were often culturally based and prone to bias. Other means of the hiring process and references were equally poor at success of the job. So, and then when you think about performance management in the 80s, when I think of the 80s when I first started, okay, performance management, 360-degree feedback was popular. Right? So some of you are young. I'm old. I've been around. I remember when I was working for the provincial government, I was working for the Ministry for Children and Families. I took a temporary assignment in a different ministry, and it was a ministry that I was not familiar with at all. I was a supervisor to two ladies that were quite a bit older than me, but I had to manage 9 other administrative staff in satellite offices. And I discovered I got the supervisory role because the 2 older ladies, they didn't want one of them to supervise the other because they fought all the time. So they felt that if one became the supervisor to the other, it would cause some conflict. And I didn't discover this until a little bit later. So here I was going into a new role that I knew nothing about, a ministry I knew nothing about, supervising ladies that had been in this role for over 25 years. And I was coming in and being their supervisor. Talk about a shock. So of course, the minute I walked in the door, the ladies had their backs up. Here was this 30-year-old coming in and being their supervisor. They were in their late 50s, early 60s. I had asked it was a 7-month term that I had to do, and these women challenged me at every step of the way. I'd be up at the counter helping a customer. They would come up and say, oh, you're doing that wrong, you're doing that wrong. Yeah, not good. So they challenged me. So it was a really big learning curve for me. I had supervised people before, but not 9 people. I was responsible for going to the satellite offices, doing training, if there was new software that came in. So I learned a lot in that role in 7 months. Patience was one of them. Okay? I had asked at the end of my 7 months for a 360-degree feedback, which back then was popular. I wanted to know how I was doing as a supervisor. Was I doing my job effectively? And it helped me learn how to improve as a supervisor. So back then, that was quite popular, right? The one lady, and I got a pretty good feedback from the other ladies that were in the satellite offices. One of the women in the office, she basically said, I favored the other lady over her. You know, but it was something that I took with me when I went to my other jobs. Right, so those were quite popular, and in the 80s, job interviews were a little bit different than they are now. Like I said, they're more skills-based than they are behavioral. Okay, in the late 1980s and 90s, recruitment, training, assessment, change management, and rewards. So things kind of changed a little bit. I remember when I did my little typing test, I actually did a typing test on the typewriter. Like, that's how far back we go. DOS was just introduced. We didn't have a human resources information system, you know. So, and change is inevitable. How do you keep up with the change? And back then, the management practices weren't necessarily there as far as employee feedback, direction. You know, people were kind of on their own, unless you were in a larger organization. So what is competency? There is so much information out there about competencies. So a competency is the combination of observable and measurable knowledge, skills, personal attributes that contribute to enhanced employee performance and ultimately result in organizational success. Okay, competencies are coachable, observable, measurable, and critical to successful individual or corporation performance. Competencies are the building blocks for recruitment, training, development, career development, and succession planning. And basically, what I discovered, this is all it is, the ability to do a task effectively. Competencies are to performance what DNA is to people. I thought that was brilliant. The underlying elements of competencies are less visible, but largely direct, and control surface behavior. So everybody has skills. If you're a doctor, you need a specific skill. Okay. There's underlying skills as well, behavioral skills. Have you ever had a doctor where, you know, they were very adept at their job, but they had horrible bed manners? They didn't have people skills. Behaviorals, those are important. For example, you have two motivated individuals, they have a similar education, experience, and skills, they're promoted into a new role. Okay, could have been a supervisory role. One quickly turns into a star performer, achieving outstanding results with apparent ease. The other struggles just to achieve the minimal level of success, frustrating both him and others. So why would one be more successful than the other? Why do you think?
People skills.
People skills?
Might be their fit with the others in the team.
Yep. If the brightest and even most experienced do not always succeed in the workplace, then what can businesses do to identify their potential star performers? Competencies use past behaviors to predict future successes. They are observable measures. For example, I was the executive director for the City Centre Development Agency downtown. Okay? It was a role that I wasn't familiar with. My background was human resources. It was a new role for me. I was actually surprised that I got the job, right? But I had some human resources skills that they were looking for. The CCDA managed the Monarch Theatre. There was a manager there who had to do the hiring. So of course, I was involved in the hiring aspect of it, managing the theater. But one of the things that I had to do was all of the downtown events. So I had to do the chili cook-off, Midnight Madness, Easter egg hunt. Okay? For all of those events, I had to find volunteers for all of those things, which was a big challenge. It was a huge challenge. But I knew what I needed to get done, and I knew what type of people I needed. For example, I needed to I had to find volunteers that would be able to take people's money, sell them bowls for the chili cook-off. So when I was looking for volunteers, I knew in my mind, and I use this all the time at work, in my previous HR roles, I knew what I was looking for. I knew a skill that I was looking for. I wasn't necessarily I was looking for a behavior, not necessarily a skill. So when I'm talking to people, I'm very observant of people's behaviors. You can tell when a person is an introvert. You can tell if a person's an extrovert. You can tell by talking to them the type of person, if they're confident, if they're not confident. So when I'm dealing with these volunteers, I had to sort out where I wanted to place them for the chili cook-off. Were they good with handling money? What was their past experience? What did they do before? What other volunteer work did they do? Were they comfortable handling money? Were they easy to talk to? Because they would be dealing with a lot of people. There was a lot of people coming in to that chili cook-off. So I had to determine where I was going to place these people based on not only their skills, but what I could see and what I could measure and what I could observe. And I actually do that now. In my role as job coach and job developer, we see a lot of people coming through our doors, and I know we were talking to Nicole about this as well. We have people that are coming from different countries with degrees. They have all these technical skills. They have all these behavioral skills. They come to Canada, and they're not eligible to work in the industry that they were trained in, which is really a shame. Because, and Canada is very strict, and I understand, but there's skills that are useful. And they have to take lower paying jobs. They have to take jobs like driving a taxi cab or delivering pizzas. All right? And then all of my roles, even when I'm dealing with my clients, they may have underlying behaviors or competencies. Like for example, when I worked at, from the CCDA, there was a gentleman that was my radio guy. And he said to me, you know what? He said, we have a position at the radio station in marketing. He said, you would be perfect for. And I said, well, I'm not even familiar with marketing. I have nothing, nope, my background's human resources. But he knew me, and he knew what I did for CCDA. He knew that I didn't have the technical skills. But when you're looking at a sales job, what skills do you really need? Everything that I did in my human resources role at the CCDA, what I did as a fitness instructor, I was also a fitness instructor. I had to present in front of people. All of those skills helped me get this marketing job. I thought, well, I'm just going to go apply anyways. And I got the job. And so I said, why did I get the job? I don't have a marketing degree. I'm not familiar with marketing. And they said, it's not about the marketing skill itself. It's about how you present yourself and how you sell yourself. And I was able to display that because I had all these other competencies that I had brought from all these other jobs to this role. I could sell swampland in Florida if I really needed to. I had to go out, I had to cold call, I had to be comfortable in front of talking to people. I had to do presentations to businesses where I had to try to sell airtime, right? Those are all competency skills. When you look at core competencies, okay, so core competencies start with the company's core competencies. Do you have an idea of what your core competencies are for your company? No? Yes. Some do, some don't, right? So employee core competencies are the set of knowledge, skills, and abilities an employee needs to be successful in an organization. It's the cornerstone of the employee's development, performance, and overall success within the company. For example, an insurance company. Okay, an insurance company will have a set of core competencies that everybody in the industry has to have, or in that office has to have. Okay, it doesn't matter if you're the CEO or if you're a customer rep. You need to have a basic understanding of the insurance industry, for one, the service your company provides, and how everything works in your organization. You determine your core competencies. You might also need to have basic computer skills, communication skills, as well as your company's mission, values, and company cultures. Okay? So can employee core competencies be developed? What do you think? Can you develop a core competency?
If one of those core competencies is understanding the policies and procedures of the job, absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
You're
For
not gonna
example,
know that coming from outside. You
No.
have to learn it on the job.
Yep, and there are some companies where, yeah, you're going in, they might have a specific software that's only for their organization, but if you have basic computer skills, that's a learned skill that you can learn. Yeah, computer skills, yeah, for sure you can learn that. Communication skills, knowledge of the insurance industry, yeah, you probably could, through training. Can you make a by-the-book person be more adaptable? Depends. Can you train someone to be more sensitive if they're not a sensitive person?
To a certain extent.
Maybe. But would that person be comfortable? Probably not. So when you look at all of your positions in your organization and you look at your star performers, what do they have that you need more in your company? What behaviorals do they have? What core competencies do they bring that make them more successful than somebody else? So when you look at all the people in your organization, how do you bring them up to that star performer, if that's what your goal is, if that's what you're trying to do? What about teaching a talkative person to be more of a listener?
Duct tape.
Duct tape. Yeah. And that's where it gets sticky. Competencies are tied to values and personalities. And I see it every day in my organization. I have a gentleman who has a specific trade that he's done for probably 30 years, and he wants to be a salesperson. But if you were to see this gentleman, he has no sales experience. The skills that he had before had nothing to do with sales. They were all technical. He worked by himself. Not necessarily any customer service skills, no leadership skills, but he wants to be in sales. But if you were to see him, he's not a salesperson. He's very quiet. He's very timid. He doesn't talk very much. And I don't see him being a salesperson, just because I know him. But that's his ambition. He really wants to be in sales. And then there's me. I've been in sales. I'm quite happy to go introduce myself to somebody. I'm very open. I'm innovative. I come up with some great marketing ideas because those are skills that I've brought with me. For example, working at the radio station. Okay, so I had to have personal skills, sales skills, interpersonal skills, time management skills, presentation skills, and I had to have product knowledge. That was a lot. And a lot of that stuff I had to learn on the job. There was a software program I had to learn. But the rest of the skills, going out, talking to people, meeting people, those were things that I had brought with me. And you can't necessarily you can teach a person about sales, but can you really make them successful if they don't have that type of personality? So really dig deep and look at the type of people that you have in your organization. So these core competency skills, and I just picked up one randomly, and it could be any organization. So an organization is going to have a set of core competencies. They could have 6 core competencies, 12 core competencies, depending on the organization. So you might need interpersonal skills. What does that look like? Maybe you need a leader, you need a motivator, negotiator, consensus builder, team builder. Maybe part of it is business skills. Maybe you're in manufacturing, and it's a business. So you're looking at business skills. You might have an accountant. You could have a legal department. You could have technology, marketing, personal skills, customer service skills. And I picked this one because it kind of fit with my roles that I've kind of done. I mean, I have so many different competencies. So personal, teamwork, operational. So personally, I'm continually learning. When I went into marketing, I learned. I read, I watched other people, I job shadowed, I figured out how to market. I learned, and so it was a continuous learning for me. Innovative and risk-taking, I was honest and integrity. I would not, in radio, I would not go and sell a package to a company if I knew it wouldn't work for them. Why would I do that? The next salesperson next to me, for sure, they'd go and try to sell a $3,000 radio package, but not me, because I was honest and I have integrity. And if I knew it wouldn't work, I wouldn't sell it to them. So these are just a few when you're looking at competencies. Teamwork, operational. This one's kind of funny. I thought this cartoon was cute. We're outsourcing everything but our core competency. Once we find out what that is, we'll begin the outsourcing process. A lot of organizations don't even know what their core competencies are. What makes their business run? And what makes it effective? I wanted to briefly talk about millennials. And I think Dirk and Jeff kind of talked a little bit about millennials in one of your other presentations. But I thought for this, it's kind of evolving and changing. When I think about what it was like when I first started, and now we're looking at these millennials coming up. So what is that? They're totally changing the culture of business. What do you think millennials are? What do millennials want?
Well, they expect everything,
They expect everything.
whereas we have to work for it.
Yep.
Well, just having spent a couple of days teaching young people, I have to remind myself that being young, millennials are young. And although a lot of the things we say now about millennials, I know they said about us, and I know, like what's wrong with you people, so I know that there is some differences, but I think some of it has to do with the stage of development of that brain that's just finished cooking, and it's not the MLAX experience. And what I've learned this week in working with some of these millennials is that they are very open and amenable to developing new ideas if they have a chance to be exposed to them. But that's the thing. In today's world, what people are exposed to can be quite targeted based on what people pick up on their phone and what they see. So maybe they don't have quite the range of information that we had when we were young. And certainly the expectations are quite different. If you were 18 when you were my age and you were still living with your parents, people thought there was something wrong with you. And that's probably the biggest difference.
Yeah, so millennials are categorized, they're lazy, they're entitled, they want everything for nothing. They want to get their education and move into a professional job and make $100,000 a year. They expect that. They've been kind of babied a little bit, maybe a little bit too much. Their mom had called in sick for them, that kind of thing. So that kind of is changing the way that we look at what's coming up. So what do millennials want from their boss? If you take a look, what do they want? They want a boss that'll help them navigate their career path, give them straight feedback, will mentor and coach me, sponsor me for formal development programs, is comfortable with flexible schedules. That's what they're looking for. What do they want from their company? You can kind of read it. Will develop my skills for the future, has strong values, customizable options in their benefits and reward package, allows me to blend work with the rest of my life, offers a clear career path. Back in the 80s, when I think about offers a clear career path, that was kind of necessary. It was unheard of. You just kind of went into your job, you did it. You know, there was no succession planning necessarily. There was, unless you were, you know, proactive and you knew what you wanted to do and you knew what you needed to get there, what kind of skills you needed, what behavioral skills you required. Millennials, they want a clear path. They want to know where they're going and how they're going to get there. Okay, what do they want to learn? Technical skills in area of their expertise, self-management and personal productivity, leadership. Leadership is a big one. Industry or functional knowledge, creativity and innovative strategies. Right now, the demographic of millennials makes up about 35% of the workforce right now. So in the future, it's going to be half to 3/4 of the workforce by 2020. Baby boomers are retiring. Okay, you need to start looking at succession planning. They're going to dominate the landscape in every aspect. Okay, so industries need strategies to adjust to accommodate them. Okay, set the expectations and preferences for this younger demographic. Okay, they're more risk tolerant. They're less safety conscious. Less likely to have family obligations, which means they prioritize upward mobility over job security. The baby boomers, they wanted job security. They would stay in the same job forever. They were comfortable there. They didn't like change. Millennials, they're just going to jump from job to job to job until they find something that they like. They're more idealistic than pragmatic. They gravitate towards companies with clear values and purpose that they can relate to. They expect to be less concerned with stability and more open to new opportunities. So millennials 30 and under will average 3 times more job changes compared to baby boomers. Okay? They want work that offers new challenges. They don't want a fancy title. They don't want prestige and perks. They want to be plugged into work that is meaningful and something bigger than themselves. That's what millennials are looking for. So 60% of millennials leave their company in less than 3 years. 87% of companies report it costs between $15,000 and $25,000 to replace each millennial employee they lose. And 40% of companies currently employ 50 or more millennial workers. How many would you say that you have as a millennial in your office? Under the age of, say, 30.
In the office or in our group?
Well, just in your organization.
Probably 50, about 60%, probably 60%.
Okay, so do you find a difference between them and your other workers?
Oh, for sure.
So what do you notice?
For a lot of them, if you get the right ones, yeah, they're just really good players. They really are. So again, they're coachable and stuff like that. So
Yeah, they're coachable.
Yeah. Not all, but
Yeah.
the
Okay.
majority of them.
Good. So I want you just to kind of, in your groups at your tables, I want you to kind of talk about what have you seen over the years since you started working, how competencies have changed, if at all, if you've noticed any changes at all. Okay, and we're going to have a little brief discussion about that, about competencies over the years. And then what competencies do you have currently in your organization? Okay, so we'll spend about 5 minutes on that. Talk within your group.
When I bring the other guys in this room,
Okay, are you guys ready? Okay, so if somebody from each table can kind of give me an idea of what you've learned at your table as far as how competencies have changed since maybe you started, and what competencies do you currently have in your organization? Okay, so we can start at this table. Yeah, Allison can be the representative for the table. What did you guys discover?
We talked about how women started off, in the 80s when I started in IT. It was a boys' club. So the hard thing now, women now have it so much easier because they're not judged differently, they're judged equally.
Most of the time.
Most of the time. But usually
Not
when
always.
if a woman and a man come out of college, they're going to have a similar thing.
Yep.
Whereas it was different before.
Okay.
And then we were talking just about interviews.
Yeah, interviews have changed?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, it's one thing to say, we're looking for these competencies, and if I say to someone in an interview, are you a problem solver? Of course they're gonna say, oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Right?
but how do you get that out of them?
Well, and they might even have an example or two, right, that they
Yeah.
read somewhere or whatever. I have absolutely no way of knowing if that's true.
Yeah.
And we just had an example like this at my organization where we had to let someone go because after we hired them, it became clear that they had none of the core competencies we required.
Did you ask behavioral questions at the interview?
Yeah. People
So they didn't give examples. Give me an
did,
example of a
but
time you had to
people
deal with a
can
different.
bullshit really well.
Yeah, and they do. Yeah, some people are good BSers.
They're for an interview,
Yeah.
and they know what is expected of them. That doesn't mean they can live up to it.
Yep. Yeah, definitely.
That's where I think the reference checks are so critical.
Yeah, reference checks are critical.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
because people will always put their best foot forward
Yep.
or try their best, but it's what that past experience showed.
Yeah,
That's the thing, I'll never employ anybody who hasn't got their last employer as a reference.
as a reference.
Because there's a reason why not. Too late.
Well, and so did you have a discussion at your table a little bit? Oh, I know, no? Okay, so, and it's true, competencies are not about the duties, so competencies are about the people. And when you look at that hiring, like Petra said, they can BS their way into anything, and I'm really good at that. I'm really good at BSing my way into anything. So how do you kind of eke out those competencies? Yeah, reference checks was mentioned. Maybe you're talking about tests, behavioral questions when you're doing the interview, for sure. Yep. So job duties are different from job analysis or the process, and it's job description. They're totally different, right? So based on, job descriptions focus on the work, but not on the unique characteristics of the people who are supposed to be doing the job. As a result, job descriptions often fail to address the measurable results, and since job descriptions are based on activities or duties, they may quickly change as organizations and work assignments change and the work changes. For example, in the 80s, we had big hair, right? We had the shoulder pads. We had Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And we didn't have smartphones. We didn't have Google Maps. We didn't have online banking. We didn't have instant messaging. Okay? So, and in the 80s, many organizations that had practices that belonged in the dark ages, right? It wasn't uncommon for someone to start a job and have no clear expectations of what they were supposed to be doing. Even now, to this day, and I think of my previous jobs, I got a job description. Sometimes it was very vague, and I had no idea what I was supposed to be doing. No idea. I kind of knew a little bit about the job expectations, and that would be about it. They would basically say, welcome to your new job, here's your desk, fly at it. Oh, okay. What do I do? What?
I find when you're looking at job descriptions, especially in terms of job postings, they like to use a lot of those convoluted buzzwords.
Yeah.
Where at the end of the day, you're like, why isn't this just written in plain English? Because
Yeah.
there are times when if you wrote it in plain English, the person applying for the job would go, oh, well, I'm no good at that. And they would, pass on. Whereas you use all these convoluted words, and they're like, I don't really know what that means, so I'm just going to put that in my resume. And
Yeah. Well, and job postings need to, I think, have more competencies in them as opposed to just their generic job duties, because it doesn't mean anything.
give an idea of what the job actually is. What are you actually going to do every day?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Because I've seen one where I'm looking at it and I have no idea what they expect this
Yeah.
person to do day in and day out.
Well, and it helps you screen out people as well, right? Somebody could have all of the skills, they could BS their way into it, But if it says customer service skills, I have to deal with 50 people a day, and you have to be pleasant, and you have your competencies for that job. What if somebody's an introvert? They're not going to apply for the job, right? I really liked this one, and it's kind of out of context. I should have had it at the beginning, but it's kind of like the iceberg model. And this is when you look at competencies. So skills at the top is very small, and when you look at the self-image, values, traits, and motives of the person itself, it's underneath. And I like the better picture. I saw one where it was a brain up at the top, and then it was a heart at the bottom. And really, and that's what it's all about, is those skills, those competencies that people bring with them that are based on their image, their values, their traits, and their motives, right? So we talked about, but why use competencies? So when you talk about competencies in your business, okay, it gives you can translate the organization's visions and goals to expected employee behavior. If you have a set of competencies, you're going to have your company competencies that everybody in the company has to have. It could be customer service, could be leadership skills, okay? And then it's going to be broken down into jobs, okay? Every person's going to have their own set of competencies for that specific job. If they don't know what it is, how can they do their job effectively? Identify areas for employee development that are linked directly to desired outcomes and organizational objectives. What are your values? What is your mission? What is your company objectives? Are they in line with everybody's core competencies? If you have clear expectations, okay, it can help define how a person should perform their role. And I want, for example, consider a small subset of leadership behaviors. When you think about leadership behaviors, okay, well, define clear standards and measures for individual and team performance. Plans are developed in accordance with your organization's objectives. Provide regular and specific performance feedback. That's what a leader would provide to those employees. Coaching and career planning. If an organization, if they had a leadership position that somebody was interested in, what are the core competencies that person needs to get to that position? They may have the skills, but maybe they need some extra some competencies. Okay, so competencies can be evaluated. It identifies where you are currently, and this talks about the organization as a whole. It shows you where you are on the Google map, right? Using the leadership analogy, you are in your new role and you're wanting to develop your skills. It'd be vital to know that your planning and organizational skills are effective, but you weren't doing a good job of providing feedback. It's knowing where you are, where you want to go, and understanding the capabilities of an organization has now compared to the skills that will be needed. Okay, what about if you're downsizing? I know in this economy, and competencies and companies have to follow, there's economic things that change, social things that change, environmental changes. How does your organization follow that? So what if you had to downsize? What if you had to get rid of employees? What would you be looking at? Would you be looking at those star performers? What do they have? Can they do more than one job? Or maybe you're unionized. Maybe they have to let the less senior person go. So if every employee in the company has a clear vision of what your company's competencies are, it empowers them as well. I thought this was kind of good. You have your knowledge, skills, and your attitude. Your behaviors are your action, thoughts, and your feelings, and it gives you your outputs. You could be a manufacturing company, okay? Maybe it's a service that you're providing. I like this one. Okay? The IKEA job interview. Have you ever seen the video where it's the husband and the wife and they're trying to put IKEA furniture together and it determines whether or not they're going to get divorced at the end? I thought that was kind of cute. Actually, I'm going to go back. What's my time like? How much time? 10 more minutes? Okay. So when we look at recruitment and selection, okay, we're going to kind of talk about that a little bit. Okay, so most HR departments, and some still do this, they still base their hiring on 3 components, okay? Knowledge, skills, and abilities. Been around forever, right? As well as behavioral characteristics, personality attributes, and individual aptitudes. Most hiring practices focus on evaluating a candidate's fit with a first type of qualification, and the second type to color commentary or gut instincts. So when I read that, I think to myself, when I was working for the Corps Commissionaires, I was the first person that saw these resumes. And back then, we did questions based on knowledge, skills, and abilities. That's all. And we interviewed probably 1,000 people, and I was responsible for most of the hiring. And so we didn't have those behavioral questions where you could say, give me a time when, because so some of the competencies we would have for the Corps Commissioners, we're a security company. So first and foremost, customer service, leadership. Some of the other ones that I can think of, what else could I think of? I could probably think of a few more, but how do you even break that down a little bit more? And a lot of the times when I did the hiring, I did it based on guts, like how I felt about that person. Because we couldn't necessarily ask behavioral questions, because it wasn't part of the process. And I got into trouble quite a bit because I would fight for a particular person that we were interviewing. I think they would do really well. He's got customer service skills from this job that they're at. He's got some first aid. So I did that quite a bit. Because you have your transferable hard skills, technical, right? And then you have your soft skills, your behavioral. Okay, so what is a competency model? Do your organizations have a competency model? No? Don't know? Okay, so it's a group of competencies that describe successful performance for a particular organization, function, level, role, or job. Okay, you could have competencies, proficiency levels, or measured approaches. Discussion, does your organization have a competency model? Okay, everybody was quiet, so I'm assuming that nobody really has a competency model.
We do.
Do you? Okay, so could you tell us about it?
We do a lot on the indicators and the proficiency levels. We keep the levels very generic, such as, satisfactory, good, very good, excellent.
Yeah.
But the thing with that is it's subjective. So
Yeah.
sometimes you struggle because what I think is excellent is very different to what somebody else might think is excellent.
Yeah.
So that each department kind of does their own, so the manager is responsible for their own. So we use the structure, but it's not consistent.
Okay.
And that's the hard thing.
That's the hard thing, yeah. Yeah, for example, you have a rigid and authoritative manager that's not likely to succeed in a highly entrepreneurial and collaborative nonprofit culture. Right? When you think of that, when you think of somebody and they're very rigid, they're a manager that just, maybe they don't have any personality skills, they're not very empathetic. Okay? Would they do well in a nonprofit organization? Probably not. Right? So you have to look at all of those. So when you kind of look at the competencies for a framework for an organization, this is really good. Okay? So for the organization, it helps with your employee retention if they have a clear picture of what they're doing and maybe where the company's going. For the organization, develops employees for the succession plan, identifies relevant training, provides measures for performance, ensures effective employee selection, hire for attitude, train for skill. A lot of skills can be taught on the job. If you have the right behavioral competencies, anything can be trained, really, when you think about it. When you think about electrical apprentices, So you're looking for a certain skill. Is it so the skill of do they have to have an electrical certificate or anything like that? Or?
They have to be indentured, but again, even
Yeah.
if we're not, we hire laborers that would go into, but again, it's all on, again,
Behavioral. So you do most of your by behavioral hiring. Yeah. Yeah. So if you have a framework, how does it help the employees? Or so they know what the job requires, they know what skills they need to move up, brings fairness and objectivity into the performance. And during the hiring process, employees will know what the job truly entails if they have a clear picture of it. So like a competency framework can have 12 competencies. So a lot of companies will have maybe 6, 7, depending on the organization. So some of the competencies could be communication, leadership, teamwork, customer service, results orientation, problem solving. And then you get broken down into your behavioral parts of it. Okay, here's another little competency model. I wanted to just briefly talk about, Nicole, how much time do I have left?
And I give you 5 minutes.
Okay, perfect.
So generous
Thank you. So I found a couple of job descriptions for some of your organizations. So I found out who was going to be here today. So for this example, the Medicine Hat Women's Shelter, right there. So you guys are looking for an assistant. So when I looked at your job description, it doesn't really give an awful lot of information. Okay, so it says preferred qualifications. So these are the skills that you're looking for. Certification or diploma in office administration. Minimum 2 years office experience, excellent computer skills, able to learn new database systems, formulate reports, provide data analysis support, maintenance of the data system, proficient in office applications, excellent verbal and written skills, ability to multitask several priority items while paying attention to detail. That's pretty vague. And those are all skills, right? So what I came up with, I found administrative support core competencies. And you can find these anywhere on the internet. You can hire an organization to help you to figure out what your competencies are in your organization and break those down. So here were what they suggested for administration. Organization competency, communication, service delivery, technical, adaptability, and interpersonal skills. Okay, so would you say that would be probably correct? Okay, so those are basically just the titles of the competency. But when we break that down even more into the behavioral section of it, so organizational skills. So when I think of that job, one of the behavioral competencies would be develops and uses systems to organize and keep track of information or work progress. So you see, it kind of breaks it down even more. Prioritizes tasks in a fast-paced, changing environment through frequent interruptions and changing deadlines. Would you say that would be a skill? Like a competency? Yeah. So you almost need to put those on your job description, right? Communication, listens effectively to people's ideas and concerns, and it goes on and on and on. There was lots. So, and when I think of administration, so personal attributes associated with being a successful administrative person. Accurate, right? They might have data entry, compassion, cooperative, diplomatic, patient, trustworthy, approachable, sensitive, innovative. So these are all attributes, and there's more that would contribute to being a successful administrator. Right? Oh, I wanted to bring up the YMCA. Yay, YMCA!
Which one do you have?
This is the Southridge, what is it?
Membership services.
Membership services representative.
That was just reworked in our new model.
Yes. So when I kind of look at that one and then I look at this job description, and I want to clap because, so they talk about the situation at YMCA. Okay, it talks about the history of the YMCA. Why should you join our team? What are the benefits and the perks, right? What are the qualifications they're looking for? Exceptional customer service attitude and experience, previous sales experience, computer and cash handling experience. It kind of goes on and on, right? What does the role look like at the YMCA Medicine Hat? It breaks it down even more. Identify and create opportunities to enhance each and every person's YMCA experience. Complete all membership program related duties with accuracy. Breaks it down even more. And what I love was this one. What qualities do we look for at a YMCA Medicine Hat staff member? Our staff model and are committed to the following competencies. Yay! So, what are their competencies they're looking for? Develop self and others. Okay, let's break it down even further. Developing people with a view towards present and future capacity. So they've broken it down even more. So not only have they given history, what the employee is going to get, the perks perhaps, they've broken down the job description and the competencies that they're looking for when it comes to that job.
I'm going to be so paranoid putting that in the paper now because you're going to be
No, but when you're thinking about hiring, look at those competencies. Yeah, well, you know, and I saw there was a job for, it was an example of working at Trader Joe's. I think that's something in the States, right? And the job, just the posting said, do you like working with people and wearing a Hawaiian shirt to work? And then the actual job description itself was dealing with customers in a friendly, happy manner and saying sir and ma'am. Okay, so that was just for a basic one. And then it talked about a very volatile position working at an airline. Okay, and it kind of gave a brief description of, you know, being able to, and they made it kind of funny actually, being able, and I didn't bring it with me, being able to, you know, stop irate people. I can't remember what it was, but the actual posting that they had was different than the job description. And then it talked about the job description.
Can I add one caution though?
Yeah.
Sometimes people get so busy doing this, they put things that are not actually required competencies because they think it sounds good.
Yeah.
And it's a real simple example, needs a driver's license.
Yes.
In fact, you don't, you're going to miss out on really good people
Yes.
who maybe never
I
learned how to
agree.
drive or have some visual impairment. So just be careful that you don't list things that you don't actually need to have.
Yeah. Yeah. Make it very specific. Thank you, Pam. And that's right. Really, when you think of administrative, do they really need a driver's license? Probably not. Maybe they do. Maybe they need to drive parts around or something like that, right? But yeah, you're right. Yeah, or even grade 12.
Yeah, keep in mind you're asking for these perfect people, and there are no such things. So I just think you need to be cautious, be very specific about what you do and don't do. That's all.
And don't just look at their skills. Okay, look at all of their transferable skills. What have they done in the past? What are the other jobs? What do they have some volunteer experience? What did they do in that volunteer role? Are those transferable skills that you could be looking for? Don't just look at technical. Really look at the whole picture. We have a lot of clients that come through our door that I would hire in a heartbeat. They hand me a job posting that they want to apply for. And in today's market, it's really difficult. Employers, it's an employer's market. They can hire somebody with every single thing they're looking for, right? But are they the right person for the job? There could be somebody that has transferable skills that can do the job just as well and probably even better. But companies, yep, we have our keywords, right? I need 8 of my 10 keywords that I'm looking for. But really look at the whole big picture, not just those skills. There's lots of other skills that people bring with them, right? Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was awesome.